everyone. Welcome to another episode of Home Tech. Jason Griffin here. So happy to be with you. Joined again by Seth. Seth, how are you?
Doing well. Refreshed from a vacation, and glad to hear you and Nate got together and had a nice little chat about cell phone extenders into the home
and connectile dysfunction.
Connectile dysfunction. that was so hilarious when you sent me that title. I was like, oh yeah, I know what the image has got to be.
Yeah, and I can't claim originality. That was actually from an old Sprint commercial, some people might recall. But anyways, for people who may not have listened, I had a good friend of mine, fellow systems integrator, and also a fellow podcaster that I work with on another podcast called AV Shop Talk, Nate Schneider, on as a guest host, because Seth was actually doing some traveling, and it was a lot of fun. So we really enjoyed that episode. But Seth, we're happy to have you back.
Oh, no, it's good to be back, and I really want to say thank you again to Nate for filling in for me, because he did a pretty good job. I'd love to sit down and chat with him about some of the stuff he does, too, one of these days. I know he's pretty commercial heavy is what he sounded like.
Yeah, yep. No, but definitely. We'd love to get him on the show sometime. So anyways, you're back in town, and I'm sure you got your hands full there with the new house. How are things going?
Yeah, there's no rest for the weary. Well, this last week has been kind of a push to get everything done. When we came back into town, it was like, don't even stop to unload the bags at the place we're staying. We're just going to go straight to the house and start working. And we hired some drywallers to come in and patch up the drywall and put things back on the walls. So naturally, when you do that, everything has to be done. You don't want to open that back up. So it was a last minute push, and I kind of realized, like, oh no, I haven't really done much with the AV. It's all been lighting and, putting electrical outlets in where they needed to go and that kind of thing, and retrofitting that down the wall.
I just have to say that I think it's so funny, because as an integrator, and the integrators in our audience probably all relate to that constant rush of running around because you've got jobs where the walls are closing up, and it's like, oh, did we get everything? What did we forget? We need to go move wires around. And I just think it's funny that you're a systems integrator, and it even happened at your own house. So this is
exactly.
kind of just an inevitable problem.
Yeah. And it's so true. I mean, it's the last trade to go in a house at any pretty much any stage. I mean, you go in after the electrical, because the Romex and whatever, you want to avoid those wires for interference, and you don't want to have an electrician or mechanical like go over the top of you and mess up those wires, the more sensitive low voltage wires. So we generally go in, we're trying to thread that needle and go in like right after the electricians and right before the drywall goes up. And I'm certainly did that. It kind of ran out of time on my end because of some of the other stuff I had going on. But what I ended up doing was spending more time making sure that I could retrofit more into the house later on down the line. And I think you guys talked about it a little bit last week, about the blog posts that I've been trying to do.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
So I'll probably be posting more pictures along the lines of what my ideas were there, and why particularly. I mean, because you can't, I certainly can't. I have clients that can, but I can't do everything I want to do on day one. So I'm just trying to make sure that when the time comes, I can do it, and I have wire or conduit put in where that needs to go, and I just kind of open up a hole or take off a blank plate and put what I need to put in and call it a day. So
yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of that future proofing going on in this house.
Yeah, it's always a good idea. A few strategically placed conduits can be a real lifesaver, no doubt.
Yeah, I've got like a 30-foot run of conduit from one attic access to the other. It's just a straight shot, but I'll never have to get in the attic and crawl that 30-foot distance again. So that was one of the great things I did. So I'll put some pictures on the blog there and kind of keep updating it here in the future.
Yeah, I would encourage people to check that out. We started the blog a while back, and admittedly just haven't been adding a lot of content to it, but Seth's going to be ramping that up a little bit at least with this home technology project that he's currently undertaking. So people can go check that out at HomeTech.fm/blog, and we would encourage them to do so. We've got an all news show lined up this week, quite a few stories we wanted to hit on. And, right at the top of that list is ISE coming up next week. And that's a really exciting, fun-looking event that I am insanely jealous of everybody going to.
Integrated Systems Europe, and it is basically CEDIA of Europe, right? I mean, that's like everybody goes to this show, and
yeah, it's actually a joint venture. I admittedly didn't know this until recently, but ISE is a joint venture between CEDIA and Infocom. So it is actually like CEDIA and Infocom combined, literally, and size-wise and everything. So it's kind of commercial and residential, whereas here in the States, you have fairly divided trade shows. Infocom's big on the commercial side. CEDIA is big on the residential side. This is a joint venture between those two organizations, and an extremely large show.
Yeah, and it's a cool show, too, because here in the States, we kind of have a handful of vendors that we get to see at CEDIA. Or if you go to Infocom, I've been to a couple of Infocoms, and it's kind of like video heavy to me. Like, you can do anything with these barcode projectors and like just massive LED displays that you can put out for your stage show. Kind of like they had on the Super Bowl. Did you see that? That's crazy. Like, yeah. So they have all that at Infocom. But ISE seems like it's a good mix of those two. And you what you get to see there, since it's in Europe, you get to see all the European stuff brought in, and like the different flavor of product that they have. So I always get excited about seeing like different keypad looks and like just the more modern look that they have
just the
over
different
there.
styles.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to see what comes out of that show. And again, I'm just jealous of everybody going. I know we have a fair amount of listeners overseas, and we would encourage anybody listening to the show who is attending ISE, definitely reach out to us. We're on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast, or you can find us through feedback form on our website at HomeTech.fm/feedback. And we would love to hear about what you're excited about seeing at the show, what your plans are, what you're hoping for, any of that. We read all those emails and all those tweets, and would definitely love to hear from you.
Yep. And so this last week, there's been kind of a ton of news kind of leading up to ISE. Like, you get the pre-announcements and everything. And I think today, it looks like Control4 made a pretty major announcement where they acquired an Australian video switching, or I guess audio switching, AV switching technology company called Leaf.
Yeah, it was a $9 million acquisition by Control4, and I am not too familiar with Leaf personally. Looks like they're, basically they do big HDMI switchers, and I think maybe some audio products as well. That maybe that's where they got their start, but primarily right now it looks like their product offerings are HDMI, HD-based-T type switchers, HDMI extenders, and that sort of thing. And I was actually asking you about this story before we started recording this evening, because you're more familiar with Control4, and I guess you were telling me that Control4 has actually been OEMing some of Leaf's products for some time now.
Yeah, I think Control4 has an in-house branded, I want to say it's an 8x8 matrix off the top of my head, but everybody kind of knew that it was Leaf, and even the salespeople at Control4 would tell you it was Leaf. So
sort of the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it just had Control4's name on it, so when you put the rack together, it would all say Control4, right. And look pretty.
Which is very common in our industry, OEM.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't had too much experience with them outside of a couple of large installs. We did this about 2 or 3 of these massive 20x20 matrix switches that they had. I'm not gonna lie, we had a little bit of problems with them in Florida with lightning and static electricity, which I don't think many engineers around the world can prepare for the type and intensity of lightning that we have here. But I will say that Leaf as a company made good be above and beyond what I think most US-based companies would have. I mean, we've had like 3 or 4 switches overnighted from Australia, which is kind of cool because it just shows up the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I said, and they've been up and running since lightning stopped, and I think they even made so good. They made us. They sent us some the brand new switches to replace them. I haven't been involved too much on those projects, but I know the problems that we had got resolved, and I can't say that for too many other companies I've dealt with.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, it just one of the costs of doing business in our industry is the fact that support isn't always as good as you want it to be from the manufacturers, and we as integrators are the face of their products. So it's so important that the manufacturers have our back when things go wrong. I'm glad to hear that you have good things to say about Leaf on that front. I think that this is obviously a great news for them. I'm assuming they're very happy about the acquisition, and hopefully this will allow Control4 to, provide a wider array of solutions to their dealers and consumers, and also, provide a better level of support and maybe quality control by bringing that all under one umbrella.
Yeah, and Control4, I think ISE is one of their major shows for announcements. I think it lines up with how they like to release product typically. So I think, and I kind of heard rumors of acquisitions being made on the hardware side. So this must be one of them, or maybe the one that they were referring to. But I'm also hearing rumors of new controllers. So I'm betting that's what we'll see next week at ISE. Some new controllers. It also doesn't help the fact that when they send you an invoice for HC250s, they're putting EOL, which means end of life, on them on the invoice. So
there's your sign.
Yeah, exactly. So the tea leaves have all been reading new controllers for a while. And it looks like we'll probably see those at ISE. At least a demo of what those will be. So
yeah, something to watch for, anyways. One of the other stories we wanted to touch on tonight is the release of a two-way driver by RTI to control the Denon Hios streaming music servers. And this is, to me, exciting news because, as we've talked about on numerous occasions, for a very long time, Sonos has really been king of the hill. I obviously would argue that they still are in terms of streaming music solution, but it's good to see that there's more competition coming in the form of Denon Hios and a lot of other offerings from different companies. Now, the thing about Hios, we talked about it on our CEDIA wrap-up, and we went and looked at it on the show floor. It is a product that looks and feels very much like Sonos. It has one glaring difference, and that is the ability to integrate with an open API. And so this is the first sign that we're really seeing of that. And RTI has developed a driver that's free to dealers, can connect and control up to 16 players on a single UI page, and you get full browsing, grouping functionality, and all of that right within your RTI app, as opposed to having to switch over to a separate app like you would with Sonos typically.
This is really weird because I'm not imagining this. At the show, they had everybody's control system lined up. So they had Savant, they had RTI, they had URC, Control4, Crestron, and you could actually use those native interfaces to control a Denon Hios system. So I don't know, maybe for whatever reason, I thought all this was done and kind of out there, right?
Well, yeah, like we've talked about this before as well, how sometimes you see things on the show floor that aren't necessarily ready. They're not fully baked. They can put together a driver that might be good enough for a demo at CEDIA, but it may not have been, hammered on and tested enough to really release it into the wild. And I think that's what this story was about, is that, okay, this driver has gone through QA, it's ready to go, and we'll put it out there. In the stories I was reading about it, it says that Crestron's going to be shipping its driver in March. Universal Remote, they alluded to coming soon. There was no mention of Savant, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But, I think they were demoing it, but it probably just wasn't ready, for a full-blown release.
Yeah, and I with Control4, you pretty much have that one interface and everything kind of ties back to it. So I'm not giving credit where credit's due here, because with all these other systems like RTI and URC, and Crestron, of course, you can have a full-blown custom interface. So I think what I was seeing was that maybe they just had one or two interfaces kind of done, and like you said, in demo mode. And if you need to expand beyond controlling that one player, maybe you need to do something else. I don't remember. I know I played around with it a little bit, but like you said, it was demo ready, but not quite fully baked.
Yeah, one thing I did see in these stories that I thought was interesting was that there was a comment about the Control 4 driver being the only one of these that they were mentioning, meaning URC, Crestron, RTI. They said the Control 4 driver was the only one being developed in-house by Denon. And they didn't say why that is, but I thought that was a little bit interesting. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as a Control 4 developer, like why that would be.
No, I'm not sure. There are certainly a lot of talented Control 4 developers, like third-party developers out there. So maybe Denon picked a couple of those up. I'm not sure. I know they said in one of these articles here, the CE Pro article, that they're going to be incorporating SDDP, which is Control 4's discovery protocol, which is kind of cool because you can basically, when you launch Composer, you hit search or discover or something like that. It goes out and finds all the TVs and all the devices, and all you have to do is double click them, and the drivers populate with all the correct settings and everything put into them. So that would be pretty cool for to have that ability on a media player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. The last thing I wanted to comment on about this story was something that in the CE Pro article that I read, kind of at the bottom, they had pulled a quote from a guy. They only gave his first name, apparently works at Denon, and it was a quote of his that was pulled off of like one of the forums. I think it was like Remote Central or something, where he talked about Spotify implementation, and he said that with the HEOS, that implementation is Spotify Connect. I'm not really a developer. I don't know what that means exactly, but it looks to me like the gist of what he was saying is that for Spotify, you will always be stuck with the Spotify app. Those were his words that were quoted. And he says, but Rhapsody, Pandora, TuneIn, iHeart, Deezer, blah, 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 will all work within the control system. So it appears to be something different about Spotify with the HEOS system that might preclude that integration working with like a third-party control system. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting because Spotify seems to be everywhere, you know?
Yeah, Spotify is quickly becoming the most popular app, I would say, with my clients, right next to Pandora. Those are really the big two that we're always setting up for clients. And I was just curious. That struck me. I'd be interested to kind of dig in and try to learn more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited to see stuff like this come to market. I was just kind of skimming through some of the comments down at the bottom of the page and on the C Pro, and they all mentioned Sonos. So
yeah,
and oh man, well I'm just glad this kind of heats up this media player market, and hopefully we'll get something good out of Denon and good out of Sonos out of it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of stuff coming to market, you got the Wink Hub. And I actually saw on TV, and I can't remember, I should have made a note of this when I threw the link on our notes here. I can't remember what channel it was or what time of day exactly, but it was on one of the major channels at a fairly like prime time hour. And I saw a commercial on TV for the Wink relay, and it's a hilarious commercial. It's a little bit hard to describe on the podcast, but it involves a perverted robot.
Is it so bad?
A woman doing yoga in her living room. And
oh my God.
I'll leave it at that. People should stop by HomeTech.fm /shows/ what is this, 50?
This would be 50, yeah.
Yeah, so HomeTech.fm /shows/50. We'll embed this video or put a link up to it. And I just thought it was, first of all, a hilarious commercial. Second of all, really kind of cool to see connected home products like this being advertised on sort of primetime TV.
You saw this on TV?
I did. I absolutely did. Now, I only saw it once, and I haven't seen it again, but it really, I was like, wow, I was very surprised to have seen this. So surprised that I stopped and made a note of it, that I wanted to mention it on the show.
Yeah, well, it's definitely
It's a great commercial, and it shows that if nothing else, these guys have a sense of humor.
Oh yeah, they have a sense of humor, all right. That's hilarious. Yeah, definitely. I'll put it there in the show notes. It's something to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On a more serious note, looks like you had pointed out a new product from Just Add Power this week that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, a couple of announcements come from those guys. Now, Just Add Power is a kind of a strangely named company, but the joke is you just have to add power and it works, and it's kind of true. It is a HDMI over Ethernet product, and what makes it so interesting? So you have a source like a Blu-ray player or a cable box or something. You plug it into one of their transmitters, and then you plug that onto an Ethernet network, and from there you can distribute it out to thousands of TVs, because as long as it's on the same network, those TVs will have receivers, and those receivers will pick up that transmitter and play it. And along the way, somebody got the bright idea to kind of do some more advanced trickery with that and make separate networks and basically make matrix switches. So in higher end homes and bigger like sports bars and that kind of thing, we use them for matrix switches all the time. So outside of what I was describing before would be like a digital signage thing where you have like TVs all around a stadium or something like that, and you'd want to have the same picture on them. It makes for an easy over a network distribution of HD signal. But what they have coming out now, they announced a 3G product. They've kind of been teasing it in photos and tweets on Twitter. This 3G product looks like it's going to do 4K, and I think what I was reading was that they were shipping it with the ability to do kind of what the 2G plus products do, so they're second gen products. But there's going to be a firmware upgrade that comes down, and it'll start doing 4K video and HDMI 2.0. So that's one of their announcements. The other one is this AV Pro 2G plus receivers that has built-in Dolby Digital 5.0 audio, and like a breakout into 2-channel audio. So for a transmitter and receiver, this basically for like integrators and people trying to do get this type of product into surround sound situations, this makes that job a lot easier.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea, great design. I mean, the applications for that get a little nuanced, and we don't have to go into all the details here, but having that option to kind of break out your stereo audio off of that signal, that can come in really handy for an integrator who might be facing like a unique design challenge. And I think that the whole model that Just Add Pro has like utilized to such effect is really interesting, because it's so much more of like a scalable system. When you've got traditional HDMI switches, you can have one source feeding out to, whatever it is, 16 or 20 TVs. But when you get up to above that, the routing becomes so difficult, and it can become very expensive. With Just Add Power, you're basically converting that signal into network packets. And at that point, anything on the network is going to be able to pick that signal up. So it's not at that point like a point-to-point solution. You don't necessarily have to have a direct Cat5 or Cat6 run from your matrix to the TV like you do with a traditional switcher. This thing could hop through a couple of network switches on its way, and in theory at least get there just fine and work every time. And I think it's just a really interesting approach. Not one actually that I've implemented a lot of times, but really interesting.
Yeah, and these transmitters look like, obviously this system was designed for commercial, and it just kind of hits a good niche there in high-end residential. And like you said, that ends up being where we install this system all the time. But they're describing here that these particular AV Pro models have a mixer built into them, so you can feed in analog audio, a microphone, and I think the HDMI audio. I think there's 3 inputs into it. And you can mix that and independently send those 3 audio streams out to a control system on the receiver side. So it looks like a really cool product with some pretty advanced stuff built into it. And I'm looking forward to get my hands on one and kind of playing around and seeing what I can do with it, because I've had a number of times where this would have come in handy to, like you said, de-embed that audio, where maybe like lip sync issues were causing a problem. You could de-embed that audio off the transmitter or the receiver and put it right into a matrix, and the lip sync issues go away completely. So this is something good to have in your tool belt as a custom integrator, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of cool products, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and these guys are just on fire. This is that Neo remote. These guys went on Kickstarter with this really cool handheld remote that will control your media room, basically TVs, audiovisual devices. And this has been a kind of a battle cry for us in this new trend of the smart home. Hey, don't forget about the AV. That's what we're always saying. Like, does it control the media room? That's a very big deal. And these guys clearly have struck a chord with this product. They went on Kickstarter with a goal of $50,000, and they raised over $1 million on their Kickstarter.
1.1 at the time of this recording. I think last time we talked about this, which was 2 weeks ago, they have 6 days to go on their Kickstarter, and by the time we release this show, let's see, that they'll probably have a couple of days left at that. So they could be, $1.5 million, $2 million here in the last 7 days. That's when these Kickstarters start ramping up. So
it's just crazy. I mean, I'm sure these guys are freaking out right now. I'm sure they're super excited, but they could not have been expecting this. And I think that it's like we talked about last time we mentioned this a couple shows ago. It's a beautiful looking remote. The form factor is great. It really kind of has that Apple design aesthetic feel to it. And clearly, I think this just shows that there's a huge market of people out there who have been, hungry for better options in the handheld remote market. And these guys have really struck on something here. I did just some quick math, based on the number of backers and the amount that's been pledged. And, they're averaging like over $200, about $225 per backer. And that's not a small amount of money. So that goes to show that, there are definitely people out there who are willing to shell out for a product like this. And I'm very curious to see how these guys do moving forward.
Yeah, do you know what they did, right?
Minimal buttons.
Well, right. But they have buttons. They're not trying to use an app. They're not trying to use a touchscreen. I don't know. I kind of keep going back to that theme, but people like buttons.
They do like TV. Buttons, but they don't need a million of them, right? They want that tactile feel, but they don't want like 100 buttons. They just want, a handful of them. And everything now on TV is so menu driven that you don't really end up looking at your remote all that much. So having, the Rosetta controls, right? Up, down, left, right, select, maybe a few other buttons. And then they've got the little touch screen on the top where you can do some custom programming to add buttons that you might use a lot that aren't kind of accessible through a hard button on the remote. And again, it really has that Apple feel to it. It looks to me a lot like sort of the big brother of like an Apple TV remote. It's got that sort of slim feel to it. And obviously they've added the touch screen, and just a really cool product. I definitely, I'm pulling for these guys.
Yeah, they've met their $1 million stretch goal, which was public REST API and custom HTTP commands, which is good. That's going to give them the ability to integrate with other products a lot easier. But it looks like they need $1.2 million. Their stretch goal is to get an if this then that channel. So that will be pretty good for them too. Yeah, awesome. I definitely will be keeping an eye on that story, and we'll touch on it moving forward. See how these guys do. Looks like Sonos is in the business of making blue plastic. Yes, for $50 more. You can buy a Sonos Blue Note, is what they're calling it. It's a Play One with blue plastic on it, and they're celebrating Blue Note Records, the 75 years anniversary of Blue Note Records, which is just pretty cool because Blue Note Records was a pioneer there in the early jazz sounds, and it's nice that they're putting all this together and doing something special. I just don't know if it's worth $50. Oh, look, it supports AirPlay. Oh, no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Oh, man. Seth's battle cry.
One day, my dream will be realized.
Yeah, I was reading through this story and trying to find what else. Like, to me, it doesn't look like it's really anything different other than the form factor. It's blue. I mean, it looks cool. If you're in the market and this thing's going to be sitting visible in your room and you like that color better, maybe it's worth $50 extra to you. I don't know. To me, it was kind of like, I'm fine with the other one, right? If I was in the market for a Play 1 right now, the $50 extra wouldn't be worth it to me. But, you know, it's a way for them to kind of commemorate an event that they maybe feel passionate about, and obviously they're very into music and just promoting the art of music. And here in LA, they've got a really cool, like, super hip, you know, it's not a retail, it's not a storefront, it's just kind of like this little hangout place that they throw concerts at and stuff like that. And they're just kind of a hip company, and I guess for the right person, this might be a cool little product, but not much there for me.
Yeah, I will give Sonos credit there. They certainly do seem to have a company that's just completely around listening to music. I mean, that they are always, if you follow them on Twitter, they're always posting shots of a concert that they're promoting or attending or something, and that's awesome, man. That supports music and live music, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, I don't know if it's purely marketing or if it really speaks to the people behind the product. I would assume the latter. Give them the benefit of the doubt there. But either way, their public image, they're very into the culture and the celebration of music. And, you know, I think this speaks to that.
Yep, definitely. Well, there's one sad little company that doesn't have a good public image right now. And here in the States, Radio Shack files for Chapter 11.
Yeah, and this was a story that anybody who follows this industry saw this coming. I mean, there have been rumblings and talk about this for months now, and doesn't come as a big surprise, but I think still kind of sad. You know, Radio Shack is that place that you remember kind of as a kid going into and seeing all the cool little gadgets and stuff that you could tinker with, and it was sort of a haven for people that like to kind of build their own electronics and do the homebrew thing, right? And kind of come up with their own little gadgets. And eventually it just sort of evolved into like a little, I don't know, cell phone store and a place to buy like super expensive RCA barrels. And that was really all there was. That was like the only time in recent memory that I've ever gone to Radio Shack is when you're working on a project and you're like, oh man, I need like 2 RCA barrels to get this project done. You run over to Radio Shack. $20 later, you've got 2 RCA barrels. The project's done, and you never go to Radio Shack again for another 6 months.
Oh, you're so right with that. They had some serious markup on their components, but yeah, I have very fond memories of going in there as a kid and playing around. I mean, they were a computer manufacturer. They manufactured Tandy computers, and one of my very first computers was a TRS-80, which is a really old computer in the annals of computer history. But yeah, they come from a long line of doing really good things in the electronics culture. And you know, Radio Shack, that's where you could go and basically build a radio. But I think for the most part, we're not using radios anymore. We're all streaming things, and the tide has changed. And I was hoping that we kind of reflected on this before, that they would get into home automation and be like the default place to go, or if you wanted some home automation product. But you know, this is just Chapter 11, so you know they're going to reorganize the company, and maybe something better will come out of it. Hopefully, something better will come out of it. But you know, it's going to suck for all the employees that work there too. So yeah, I mean, I have to think that they are looking very seriously at the smart home space and the home automation space as they sort of restructure. And, you know, I just wonder if sort of this big boon that we've seen in the smart home would have maybe taken place 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago. And Radio Shack at that time might have had the foresight to jump on board. This could have saved them. But, you know, they're a big ship, and it takes a long time to
turn course. And even if they were looking at the smart home over the last year and maybe thinking about making a move there, it could have been too late. These sort of things, these sort of systemic problems obviously develop over a long period of time. But yeah, a little sad. Certainly going to be difficult on the people that are working there, like you said. But it is Chapter 11. They're not going away completely. They're restructuring, and they may come back in some sort of different form or shape, and we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I've always gone to the mall and kind of wondered how two stores in particular stayed in business. Radio Shack was one of them because I'd never see anybody in there, and the piano store was the other one. I just can't imagine it. I don't understand how that works. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How many pianos do you have to sell to keep this store open?
And just food for thought, anyways.
Yep.
All right, Seth. Well, again, good to have you back in town. Look forward to chatting next week and kind of hashing over what comes out of ISE, at least what we're able to pull out of it from afar here. Really wish we were going, but just couldn't make it happen this year. There's always next year.
Yeah. I'd like to get over there because I know it's a great show. There's a lot that goes on this week, so I'm looking forward to just parsing through all the news and finding out what's going on. I kind of going to tease. I'm really looking hard at these Luxone, Luxone, I believe is how they're spelled. They just started selling them here in the U.S. and it looks like a really interesting automation product. Kind of on the level of what you could do with a Crestron system, I guess. So it's something I'm keeping my eye on, especially as I move forward with the house, because they have some really cool offerings.
Yeah, no, I think going into a show this big, even if you're just watching from a distance, it's good to have particular things you're looking for, because otherwise it's just sort of like drinking from a fire hose, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So.
Right on. Well, just want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're listening to this right now, we thank you so much for taking the time to tune into Home Tech. We really appreciate it. If this is the first time you're coming across this podcast, there's a number of different places that you can find us. Of course, at our website, HomeTech.fm, listed on iTunes and Stitcher as well. And also on a really cool site called Technology.fm. And that's a site that sort of curates a number of at least semi-related podcasts, all related to technology. There's some really good shows on there that I think fans of our show would also be interested to check out. So that's at Technology.fm.
Yeah, it's a great place to find some really, I don't know. Mike Wolf is the guy who curates them all, and he seems to find some really good podcasts out there. There's some really interesting things that you can listen to, all the way from like Bitcoin, if you've ever tried to figure out what that is, to like even Tom Merritt show, the Daily Tech News Show, DTNS is on there. So yeah, just go check that out. It's a great place to kind of sift through some podcasts and learn a few things that you may not already know.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you so much for listening. If you have any feedback, if you're enjoying the show, definitely stop by the website. Let us know on our feedback page, and just take a minute to share the show with a friend on social media or in person. That really helps get the word out there, and we truly appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening to HomeTech.fm, and we will talk to you next week.